May 1944. The South Pacific. A place that looked calm on the surface. Endless water, soft blue horizons, warm wind rolling across the deck. But beneath it lay something far deadlier. A world of silence. A world where shadows moved with purpose. A world where one mistake meant death. And into that world sailed USS England. At first glance, she didn't look like the kind of ship that would rewrite naval history. She wasn't a battleship. She wasn't an aircraft carrier. She wasn't even a fleet destroyer. She was a destroyer escort, built quickly, built cheaply, built in numbers. A ship designed not for glory, but for protection. A ship meant to guard convoys, screen larger vessels, and do the quiet, thankless work of anti-submarine warfare. But this little ship, underestimated by her enemies and overshadowed by her allies, was about to do something no vessel in US Navy history had ever done before and would never do again. Because in the next 12 days, USS England would turn the Pacific into a graveyard for Japanese submarines. Below her keel, the battlefield was invisible. There were no tracer rounds, no dive bombers screaming overhead, no roaring engines or exploding shells. Anti-submarine warfare was fought in total uncertainty. A battle where detection was everything, where seconds mattered, and where the hunter could become the hunted in an instant. Here, war depended on two machines and the men who mastered them. Sonar, that pierced the darkness beneath the waves. Depth charges that shattered the ocean with thunderous force. One revealed the enemy, the other destroyed him. USS England's crew understood this better than anyone. They had drilled endlessly, rehearsing ping, track, attack, until it was muscle memory. Their officers had studied the newest Japanese submarine tactics. Their sonar operators were some of the sharpest in the Pacific Fleet. Still, none of them knew what awaited them over the horizon. Because the Imperial Japanese Navy had a plan, a desperate one, to regain intelligence superiority in the Pacific. To make that happen, they had deployed a long chain of submarines into the waters around the Solomons. A line of steel stretched across thousands of miles. A line USS England was about to break, one submarine at a time. May 18th, 1944, late evening. South of Buka Island, the sun dipped behind the Pacific horizon, leaving USS England sailing through the kind of dim twilight that made the sea feel endless. The crew moved with quiet purpose. The air smelled of salt, hot metal, and coffee, the scent of long nights at general quarters. Then, at 01:25 a.m., came the sound every man aboard knew by heart. Ping, a return echo. Faint, but real. Saunderman Third Class William Craig leaned forward in his headphones. He froze for half a second. The kind of pause that separated instinct from certainty. Then he called out, "Contact, bearing 210, range 1,800 yards. Possible submarine." The bridge stiffened. The waiting was over. This was I-16, one of Japan's long-range Type C submarines, operating far from home and armed with torpedoes meant for American supply lines. She thought the night gave her cover. She thought she was unseen, but England had her. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton gave a simple order: prepare to attack. Everything shifted instantly. The deck lights switched to red. Gunners moved to their stations. The depth charge teams armed their racks. The helmsman swung the bow toward the contact. Below deck, The sonar team refined the track. Craig's voice came steady, methodical. Contact maintaining course. Speed slow. Depth unknown. This was where destroyer escorts lived or died. The minute between the first ping and the first attack run. A submarine in these waters could fire torpedoes from 2,000 yards. If I-16 detected England first, even by 10 seconds, the fight would be over. But England's captain trusted his crew, and his crew trusted the technology beneath them. The ship closed the distance. 900 yards, 700 yards, 500 yards. Pendleton aligned the ship perfectly with the submarine's track. He waited until the last possible moment, the exact second the firing solution was at peak accuracy. Then he gave the order. Fire! A line of depth charges rolled into the sea. One after another. Kathoom! 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 Each explosion tore into the water column, collapsing bulkheads and sending shockwaves deep into the ocean darkness. Men on deck held onto railings as the ship trembled. Light fixtures flickered. The sea turned into a boiling crater of foam and shrapnel. When the last charge detonated, the ocean went eerily calm. Craig listened, listened, listened. Then he said the three words every ASW captain hopes to hear. Target breaking up. No celebration, no cheering, just confirmation. The sea soon carried up the proof. Splintered wood, oil, debris, and moments later, cork insulation, the kind used in Japanese submarine hulls. USS England had just sunk I-16. It was their first kill, but not their last, because far out in the Pacific, Japanese headquarters was already dispatching reinforcements, unaware that they were sending more submarines directly into the path of the most lethal escort ship in American history. Because far out in the Pacific, Japanese headquarters was already dispatching reinforcements, unaware that they were sending more submarines directly into the path of the most lethal escort ship in American history. May 19th, 1944. Just one day after sinking I-16, USS England moved steadily north-northeast, tracing the long arc of Japanese submarine picket line NA, a chain of underwater sentinels placed across the Pacific to warn Tokyo of any American advance. England's crew barely had time to rest. They ate standing up. They slept in shifts. And every man knew this. If one submarine had been here, more were coming. The Japanese still believed their picket line was intact. They didn't know I-16 had vanished. They didn't know England was hunting down the line one contact at a time. They didn't know the US Navy had cracked their operational messages. And so, on the evening of May 19th, another submarine, RO-106, patrolled unaware of its fate. At 21:05 hours, USS George, operating alongside England, picked up a surface contact. Unknown vessel, bearing 325, range 14,000 yards. The contact moved like a submarine running on diesel power. RO-106 was on the surface, recharging batteries, the most vulnerable moment for any submarine. Within minutes, she realized she'd been spotted. White foam burst from her bow. The sleek silhouette dipped, and the submarine crash-dived. But England was already turning. Pendleton and his XO, Lieutenant John Williamson, didn't need a full briefing. They had seen this pattern before. Radar contact, submarine dives, sonar takes over, Hedgehog finishes the job. They moved like a machine. 10 minutes after RO-106 submerged, England's sonar team picked up the unmistakable hollow return of a submerged submarine. Craig reported, "Contact steady, bearing 318, range 1,400 yards. This time, Williamson. Already recognised as England's most gifted attack officer, took the con. He had a talent most officers never developed. He could see a submarine in the water using nothing but sonar reports. He adjusted speed, corrected his approach angle, predicted the sub's likely evasive turn before it even happened. The crew called it Williamson's sixth sense, but Williamson called it training. At 22:23, England made the first hedgehog attack. Williamson gave the order, "Fire!" 24 contact fuse projectiles flew in a tight arc and vanished beneath the waves. Silence, silence, silence. No detonations. A clean miss. RO-106 had slipped under the salvo, but she had not escaped, because the moment England passed overhead, Craig regained contact. That was England's advantage. Sonar contact before, during, and after the attack run. Most ships lost the track. England never did. Williamson circled again. The second attack run was textbook perfect. Speed, angle, depth. Everything aligned. Fire. This time the ocean answered. Bam, 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 bam. 5, maybe 6 detonations erupted in rapid succession beneath the bow. Then came the unmistakable sound of structural failure. A long, groaning, metallic shriek echoing through the sonar headset. Craig whispered, "She's breaking up." On deck, a thin column of oil slowly rose to the surface. Moments later, cork insulation appeared, the telltale sign of internal compartment rupture. RO-106 was gone. All 56 men aboard were lost. 2 submarines in 48 hours. Still, the officers aboard England sensed something unsettling. These submarines weren't coordinated. They weren't reacting. They weren't expecting an attack. It meant only one thing. The Japanese believed their picket line was still intact, and the US Navy had just discovered the perfect opportunity to dismantle an entire reconnaissance network before Tokyo even realized what was happening. USS England continued north, and another submarine waited directly in her path. May 22nd, 1944. For 3 days, USS England had been moving methodically up the invisible ladder of Japanese submarine sentry positions, one rung at a time, one boat at a time. She had already eliminated I-16 and RO-106. But the Japanese High Command still believed the line was intact. They still sent routine patrol confirmations. They still expected daily radio checks from the submarines. What they didn't know was this: every submarine that failed to respond was already sitting on the ocean floor. And USS England was still climbing. At 06:30 that morning, England's crew were exhausted, but alert. They had spent the night listening to the ocean, the soft sweep of the sonar beam, the low hum of machinery, the rhythmic thump of the ship cutting through calm Pacific water. Nothing had appeared. No radar contacts, no sonar echoes, just silence. But England didn't turn back. Pendleton had orders. Follow line NA. Destroy anything that appears. These were not normal submarine hunting grounds. This was a Japanese defensive screen meant to protect their entire Central Pacific Command. And somehow, by either luck or fate, England had slipped right inside it. At 10:04 hours, radar operator Jack Burke leaned closer to his screen. A faint return appeared. Weak, distant, almost lost in the clutter. But it had the shape, a low, narrow, fast-moving silhouette. Surface contact, bearing 280, range 12,000 yards. Another submarine, another boat running on diesels. Another chance for England to tighten the noose around the Japanese perimeter. The contact was RO-104, part of the same picket line, unaware that she was now the next target in a widening circle of destruction. RO-104 spotted the approaching escorts and began a crash dive. Slipping beneath the surface at around 3,000 yards, but she made a fatal mistake. Instead of diving deep and turning away, she began a shallow, predictable descent, the same maneuver Japanese submarines had relied on earlier in the war. And that was precisely why they were dying now. Because England had a weapon designed for this moment. The Hedgehog. A weapon the Japanese still did not understand existed. At 10:15, England's sonar team picked up the submarine immediately. Craig's voice cut through the bridge. Contact steady. Bearing 283. Range 1,800 yards. Williamson stepped to the con without hesitation. By now, every man on the ship trusted him with their lives. He had developed a reputation almost supernatural. If Williamson took the con, the submarine was already dead. It just didn't know it yet. He ordered all engines ahead 1/3. Bring her to course 290. Prepare to attack. RO-104 was maneuvering, but predictably, downslope, turning gently east, trying to slip under England's bow. But that tactic no longer worked. The Hedgehog fired forward. The bow was the last place a submarine wanted to be. At 10:22, the first salvo fired. 24 projectiles arced into the water. No explosions. But the miss didn't matter, because England didn't lose contact. She turned like a predator circling prey, sonar beam sweeping and locking back onto the submarine the moment the ship rolled past. At 10:28, England made the second run. The submarine was pinned down. Her speed was limited. Her depth was predictable. Her turn radius was shrinking. RO-104 was boxed in. Williamson corrected his angle by just 5 degrees. A tiny adjustment, but enough to position the salvo directly ahead of the submarine's projected turn. Fire! The Hedgehog launched again. This time, the ocean answered violently. Pop, 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 pop. A sequence of sharp detonations erupted 200 feet below. Then, the unmistakable, gut-wrenching rumble of collapsing pressure hull plates. The sonar headset filled with static. Then a long, cracking groan. And then, nothing. RO-104 was gone. By noon on May 22nd, USS England had eliminated another Japanese submarine picket position. 3 submarines, I-16, RO-106, and RO-104, had been destroyed with the same pattern. Radar contact, crash dive, sonar lock, Hedgehog salvo, submarine destroyed, all in perfect, repetitive, precise sequence. A pattern so clean, it was almost mathematical. But the Japanese were finally starting to notice. 2 submarines missed their check-in times. Then a third. Then a fourth. Tokyo began to suspect something was wrong. But suspicion couldn't save them, because England wasn't finished. The deadliest part of the patrol was still ahead. If this story of courage, calculation, and split-second decisions moved you, take a moment to honor those who lived and died in the skies of history. Like this video to help share these untold tales. Subscribe to our channel and join a community that keeps forgotten heroes alive through meticulous storytelling. Comment below with your thoughts. Where are you watching from, and which moment in today's story struck you the most? Your voice keeps history alive. Every like, share, and subscription ensures that these lessons of bravery, strategy, and sacrifice are remembered. Because every detail, every decision, every life mattered. Thank you for watching, and thank you for remembering.